Hello and welcome. If you're new here, my name is Marta, but you can just call me M. And today we're going to go through all the books I read in January, half of which were selected by my boyfriend when we went book shopping for the new year. No. And I'm going to link the video up here and in the description box if you want to watch it. But the other half were recommended or selected by my best friends. And so I thought that just for the fun of it, I will pit the two sides against each other and see who did better at selecting a book for me. Now, without further ado, we are starting with Graveyard Shift, which is more of a short story than it is a book. And it's about a group of friends that find a freshly dug grave. And they want to know what is happening. So they follow... No, I'm not going to spoil. Because it's way too short for me to tell you more than that. I think it's marketed as a horror story. It definitely did not read as a horror story. I very much enjoyed the writing style. And the writing style itself made me want to pick up another book by this author. So I now have bought If We Were Villains. Now, with regards to Graveyard Shift, I also like the characters, and I find myself caring about some of them, which was surprising considering how short this is. However, the story itself felt rather weak. At the end, I was like, this is it? This is how we're ending? It was just so anticlimactic, and I felt very, very disappointed. It was not a satisfying read. It was quick and easy, and it was interesting, but then it just ended so randomly. And I give it a 3 out of 5. But I am looking forward to reading more from this author. Next up, we have Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy, which my boyfriend picked because he saw the cover. He read the word Moscow on the back cover, and he thought that this was going to be a communist story. I don't have the heart to tell him that that is definitely not the case, because he got really excited thinking that he's getting me something that revolves around communism and the USSR, because I do have an interest in that. But this was not it. So this is another lesson of don't judge the book by its cover. I have very complicated thoughts about this book. It was a very slow start, and by slow start, I mean possibly like the first 250 pages. So slow, so flippin' slow. But the slowness wasn't the type that would make me want to give up on the book, because I still found the story interesting and I wanted to know what the hell was happening, where we were going. And also, while this was selected by my boyfriend, one of my best friends was also reading it at the same time, and she had told me about this book, and she had told me she enjoyed it, even though she was kind of struggling to get through it and she had to start reading it again. But it was also recommended by a friend, so I was kind of optimistic about this book. Now, apart from it being slow, the other issue I had with it was that from the beginning and throughout the whole book, we are bombarded by names of people and locations and code names, because this is a spy book. It's about espionage. It's about finding a Russian mole within the British intelligence agency, right? It's a whirlwind of information and just information dumps, and you jump between being in a room with one person and talking about something, and then being in a room with another person and talking about something else or something relevant, and you don't know when exactly the jump is happening, why it's happening, because sometimes it's kind of like the main character is interviewing someone, and through that interview, through that dialogue, you jump through time and timelines and people and places, and somehow you never get dates, okay? You never get dates of when these stuff happened, and so you're kind of trying to piece everything together. It's kind of like a puzzle. And I read some reviews where people said that to read this properly, you should take notes to keep track of everything, and I'm like, do I want to put this much effort into following the plot of a book? The short answer is no, not really. Also, English is not my first language, but I do have a bachelor's and I'm on track to have a master's degree here in the UK. I have read a stupid amount of academic papers, of research, of law texts. Okay, a stupid amount. I am confident in my English skills, although sometimes, especially when I'm talking and I'm talking very fast and I'm trying to dump my thoughts, my English does die from time to time, right? But I am confident in my English skills, okay? Nothing out of everything I have read for all of my academic life, nothing has made me feel like my English is inadequate as much as this book has made me feel like it's inadequate. I don't know how I feel about that. This book also showed me that my ability to focus has really gone down, and it did put me to sleep a few times. And at some points, I did feel like the driving force to me keep reading was just sheer stubbornness. Like I was like, this book will not defeat me. I will get through it. I will understand what is happening. I will not lose this fight. And I am happy I read it because, as I said, it did start picking up and things started making more sense within the last 150 pages, but I still have very complicated emotions about this book. I don't normally rate things with half stars because I'm usually it's either this or it's that, there's no really in between. But Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy for me gets a 3.5. Next we have Scythe, which I started reading alongside Tinker Tailor because I was losing my mind and I needed something to relax. Because I especially love reading before going to bed and before falling asleep, but with Tinker Tailor, my brain couldn't relax. Like the book would either put me to sleep or would just get my brain going, so it really wasn't the optimal book to read before bed and relax. Yeah, so that's why we had Scythe, which my boyfriend once again chose basically because of the cover and because it's about death. And he knows that I love the way death is portrayed in Terry Pratchett's Discworld. He thought that this would have similar vibes. First of all, this is a sci-fi book. I love sci-fi. Yeah, nothing bad about it. But again, we went into this with different expectations. Now, the main thing here is that the story I found interesting up until the last, 100 or 200 pages, because then it started getting frustrating and predictable and was kind of like just watching a drama, like unnecessary drama. It started becoming very illogical for the way the characters were being developed, for the way the plot and the main conflict was being resolved. Suddenly all logic went out the window, and that for me was kind of sad because I thought that the world that the author created was really interesting as a concept, and I felt like I wanted to read more stories from this world. Wow, the light is really going away. What is this? Okay, the UK and its lack of sunshine is just a huge pain in my ass. Yeah, I have the curtains open on both windows and I have big windows in this room and it's still so flippin' dark. Well, like, what is this? Hello, can I have some sun, please? Please. Sorry. I'll turn the light on and I'll be back. Now, to summarize, I keep forgetting to give you summaries and I just go straight into the review. I am sorry, I will get better at this. So this is a book that is very fitting for the boom in AI that we are experiencing, because basically what's happened is that humanity has progressed so far that they have basically found a cure for everything. They found a cure for death. So you can't die in this universe. The only way that you can die is if a scythe comes and kills you. Scythes are highly trained and authorized by the Scythe to do these killings, and everything else in society is pretty much controlled by this special AI grand computer thing that monitors life and humans, and he protects it. The computer protects humankind from death and catastrophe and, whatever. And when someone dies, immediately someone is sent, and the body is taken, and then it's revived, and on and on and on and on. And so people can live hundreds and hundreds of years. They can even reset their ages back, so you could live up to be 18 and you just push the reset button and you're 20, like that type of stuff. And the only way that humanity's population is controlled is through these Scythes, who go and kill people. Each side has his own method, his own reasoning. Some do it at random, like they will just select someone at random and kill them, and that will be it. Others kind of, do research on people and try to find the best target to kill, and they have like yearly quotas of how many people they have to kill, and blah 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 blah. That's the world, basically. And we have the two main characters who are taken to be a Scythe's apprentice. Now that we have that covered, and you've also listened to me rant for a while, just a few more points. The first one is that the characters, to me, did not feel distinct. They were very bland, specifically from the main characters. There is also no power balance, because this is a YA book, so our main characters are 16, and somehow they become better fighters and killers than dozens of professional killers that have been doing this for hundreds of years. Yeah, there is no power balance. And finally, I just found the writing style very, very dry. Very dry. So Scythe gets a 3 out of 5. Now we are done with the boyfriend books, and we're moving on to best friends books. I got Hard-Boiled Wonderland and The End of the World as a gift from one of my best friends, because she was reading it at the same time, and Murakami is pretty much her favorite author. Yeah, she loves Murakami. Now, honey, I love you. Please don't hate me for this. Okay, so this is a sci-fi book, and it's dual POV from the first person, which I already don't like, but anyway. So this dual POV, one side is sci-fi, the other side is fantasy. So the two POVs are in two separate worlds, and both worlds get their own world building. In a way. Initially, you don't really know what exactly is happening, and as you read along, you kind of start piecing things together, and you see how the two worlds connect. I'm trying very hard not to spoil here, okay? So the first character, he works in IT, basically, and he scrambles information. I can't properly explain this, okay? I don't even think it's that well explained in the books as well, because again, it is sci-fi, and the way it's explained is kind of something we don't really have in the real world, and it can't be done in the real world, because it also has to do with the way the brain functions, and the way it's separated into the right and the left side, and the way information can be processed by one side and then but not by the other, and vice versa, and blah, blah, blah. It's complicated stuff, okay? On the other side, the fantasy side, we have a newcomer to a city that once you enter, you can't leave. And he is stripped from his shadow. He and his shadow are separated, and they become two different beings. Being separated, his shadow is going to slowly die. And he goes into the city, and he's given a town, and he is given a task, which is dream reading. So there are these skulls that he goes to the library of skulls to, and he takes the skulls and he reads their dreams. The IT dude, he is sent on a special case, and we follow how he handles that case and the people he meets along the way working on that case. And again, that's all I can say without spoiling. Okay, apart from the dual POV from the first person that I find an issue with, I very much find an issue with how much unnecessary detail there is in this book. And by that, I mean that you get so much details of mundane life, Like, at one point, you were following this character who was just going shopping, and there was a list of all the shops he went to and everything he bought. And I'm like, who cares? Why and how is this relevant to the story? Because it wasn't. It wasn't relevant at all. That's the type of details in the books that I really find annoying, because I feel like they're wasting my time, because there's really no point to them. And maybe some will say that it's because they're trying to build the character so we can get to know him more by what he's buying. But I'm like, I seriously don't need his shopping list. I don't care that he bought orange juice and then he went to buy light bulbs. Also, while we do get the two characters with their own worlds, they are not written in a distinct way from each other. And I know that there's a reason for that now that I have read the book, but I really did not like that. Just the way they were written for me lacked individuality, and I failed to really care about them, right? I didn't care about what was going to happen to them because I couldn't connect to them at all. They just didn't feel like actual people. And I feel like Murakami was trying very hard to make them feel like actual people with those extra details. But for me, that type of, trying to build characters just completely falls flat. We also don't really get any stakes, so we have no idea why we should care about these characters, right? Why we should care about the story. We only get to have some stakes, kind of maybe within the last 100 or so pages, but at that point I was like, why am I reading this? Like, where are we heading? Why are we heading there? What am I supposed to look for, right? Why should I care? Now, from the title itself and from some things in the books, we're supposed to think that the world is going to end, right? But we get no sense of urgency whatsoever. And there's this constant repeating of the world is going to end, the world is going to end. But we're only told that, we're not shown that, and we have no idea why is the world going to end. Is it really going to end? If that was the stake we were supposed to care about, then that was a very badly executed stake. Surprisingly, it took me longer to read this than I did Tinker Tailor, because with Tinker Tailor, I did want to know what was going to happen, and I cared about what was going to happen. Like, I found it interesting, and even though I found it challenging, I still wanted to keep reading it. But with this, I had to force myself to read it. But also, here's the thing, Murakami's writing itself is not bad writing, and this is definitely not a bad book. It's just not a book that I could connect with and that I could find myself caring about, because that's not the type of characterization that I enjoy reading. And also, as someone who is used to reading quite a lot of fantasy, and especially high fantasy, when it comes to world building, I pay a lot of attention to the way it's done. And in this case, because we had two supposedly distinct worlds, the world building for both of them was just very superficial. Now, I know that my friend is probably going to kind of shit on me for this, but very honestly, if you hadn't gifted this to me, I would have DNF'd it. I am sorry. I am so sorry, but I'm sorry. Don't hate me, please. Now, the next book picked by a friend, or not picked by a friend, but she recommended it to me, is Piranesi. Piranesi? I'm still not sure how to pronounce it in English, okay? But this book, I will not tell you what it's about, because I didn't know what it was about. I just knew that my friend liked it. And I think that this is a book that you should read without knowing anything about the book. Yes, because part of the experience of reading this book is just being confused. And this book is proof that sometimes I love being confused. You should go into this blind just so you could feel the confusion. I loved it. 5 out of 5. We are moving on to my pick of the month, which was Painted Devils, the second book of the Little Thieves series. I adore the writing style, and I was itching to read this book. It is fast-paced with great side characters and great world building. Now, for those of you who don't know the series, it's about, well, the main character is the goddaughter of Death and Fortune. The love interest is a magical police officer. Yeah, magical police investigator. Let's say it that way. In the first book, she is a thief, and in the second book, okay, wait, I'm just going to read this sentence to you. And that about sums it up, and then the story goes, and I love it. Chapter 1, first sentence. Let me state one thing up front. I wasn't trying to start a cult. Very fun read with great banter, and the love story actually felt very real to me, with all the overthinking and doubts, and I feel like it wasn't your typical romantasy where you get everything happening so fast, and it's not the slow burn type of thing. It's just kind of a self-discovery growing up type of love story, which surprisingly I enjoyed, because I didn't think I was going to enjoy it as much. I thought I was going to find it annoying, but it wasn't done in an annoying way. Now, with that said, the plot was very predictable. There's no denying that. And some things definitely happened just for the sake of the plot and to get to where the author wanted us to go, right? Which is usually how a book is written, yes. But you know, there's a way to lead you to that end point where the author wants you to go. That is not this predictable, and that doesn't feel this forced. And the biggest letdown for me for this book is that we pretty much ended at the beginning. Like, we are back to where we started in book 1-ish, and that really frustrates me. However, I am honestly excited to read the third book, which is supposed to come out this year. And also the author has uploaded, I think, 10 stories that take place during the time between the second and the third book, and she has uploaded them on AO3 for free, so everyone can read them. And honestly, huge respect for that, because I'm really sick and tired of bonus chapters being released in like special editions, and you have to try to get them, or you just, you know, find someone who has leaked them online. So really, Margaret Owen, great job on that decision with AO3. So Painted Devils gets a 4 out of 5. Добре, благодарим.
И двете ли да взема? И
Да, взимай.
Значи отивам да харча.
And we are ending with the new book club I joined, the PewDiePie book club. So we're ending with Tao Te Ching. I do enjoy reading philosophy, and I am really into Stoicism. And I do have a history of, you know, studying philosophy and ancient history and all that stuff. So I've been wanting to kind of read more of that, but because I am kind of a, you know, dopamine reader, because I read mainly just for pleasure, I kind of need to push to go on and read the things that I do want to read, but I just kind of always push back because of fantasy. So I joined the PewDiePie book club, and we started with Taoism. I will not be rating this. I feel like putting a star rating on Lao Tzu is just ridiculous. It's just a ridiculous notion. But I do have to say that Taoism is not for me. This is a book that, even though it's tiny, right? It is tiny, but you have to read slowly and intentionally, right? You have to take your time to think about what you're actually reading and what, you know, what is being said. You also have to think about how you will interpret that, right? Because with Tao Te Ching, it doesn't have an official translation. right? It has a variety of translations, and it does also have a variety of interpretations. It's not an easy philosophical text to read. So it is both philosophical and theological, like a religious type of text as well. But the thing is that I myself am not a spiritual person. I am not a religious person. I am very much an atheist. The religious aspect, the spiritual aspect of Taoism is not something that I can connect with, and not something that I want to connect with, right? The philosophical aspect of it, I do agree with some things. I have definitely marked some texts that I could definitely take to heart and agree with, but there were not that many. So if you have Tao Te Ching, and you want to know what I have marked specifically, those would be numbers 17, 30, 31, and 33, which funnily enough are actually the texts that deal with politics and war. So considering my political background, makes sense. So that's all for January. And to do the maths, right, 3 books from my boyfriend, and I am going to say 3 books from my best friends because, again, Tinker Tailor was recommended to me by a friend as well. Boyfriend chose books with the star ratings of 3, 3, and 3.5. Best friends chose books with star ratings of 3, 3.5, and 5. So I am sorry, my love, you have lost this time, and my best friends did better at selecting books for me. That is the roundup for the month. Maybe I rambled a little bit too much. I know these reviews are a little bit chaotic. Hopefully you enjoyed them. I will try to do them in a more structured way, hopefully, but I do kind of get lost in my thoughts and I start rambling. But anyway, thank you for watching. As always, any recommendations are welcome, and I would love to hear your thoughts about some of the books I've read, if you have read them as well. And I will see you next time. Bye bye.